Hello, my friends, and welcome to Shop Talk. September 30th, you can kiss September goodbye. It's out of here. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how fast my life is passing before my eyes. Oh, it just, yeah, I don't even know how to explain that. It's just crazy. You know, you always hear that when you're a young kid, that time really passes fast when you get older and stuff. I never knew what they really meant. Boy, I sure do know now. It's crazy how fast it goes. Looks like we've already got a number of viewers popping up there. It looks like Jeff Puris was the first one to acknowledge anything there. And good morning, Jeff. And Bill Allen and C. Wilczek. From Cheshire, Massachusetts, and Ian Shortall from Australia. Well, hello, Ian. I see you comment a lot, and I appreciate it. We've got a good shop talk for you today, and at the last minute, I changed the title of this to demonstrating the restored HD 28. And we do have a lot of topics to go through today, and I still think we'll find time to do questions and answers at the end. I was debating on whether I wanted to do this little short rant, but I just think I'm going to throw it out there because why not? I mean, we're all friends, right? Two of the subjects in school that I always thought were the most important for me personally were like science and math. And math, is pretty much black and white. It's just math is math, and it's very important, I think. Science, to me, was also very interesting and important because a lot of science is just right down to common sense. And you know how big I am on common sense. And but then there's these few things in science that make no sense at all. And since day one, and they've had this theory for a long time, and I've probably known about the theory for at least 30 years, if not 40 years. And it's that Big Bang Theory. And from day one, I've said that is the stupidest theory I've ever heard of in my whole life. That is the stupidest theory. Now, you understand, I'm not basing this on religion. I'm just, I'm leaving that outside the discussion, okay? I'm basing it on common sense, period. Nothing else, just common sense. Since day one, when they said that the whole universe started in this one little tiny point, and they actually, their words, I'm not putting words in their mouths, they said it was the size of a sugar cube, and it was so dense. That is the stupidest theory that you could ever come up with. How can these brilliant minds, who we think are brilliant, come up with such a stupid theory? I would love to go to one of their big, huge meetings and just stand up in front of them and say, you people are the stupidest bunch of people on the planet. Can you actually believe that everything was compressed down to the size of a sugar cube and it all exploded and expanded? Since day one, I've said that is the stupidest theory I've ever heard of. Well, guess what? Now the James Webb Telescope is up there and they're going, oh, the James Webb Telescope is throwing a monkey wrench into the Big Bang Theory. In fact, it may have never happened. No kidding. Here, let me just, again, common sense. I'm not basing this on religion, Bible, or anything. I'm just talking common sense. The moment you can take my car and you can smash it into a cube the size of a sugar cube, then I'll start to give your Big Bang Theory some interest. I still won't believe it, but I might even give it a tiny bit of interest. But until you can take my car and smash it into something the size of a sugar cube, let alone this whole Earth, the sun, all the stars, all the galaxies, all the moons, all the planets, and compress those in something the size of a give me a break. Just give me a break. That is the stupidest theory I've ever heard of. And I can't believe all these scientists and all these people have bought into that for all these years. And now the James Webb Telescope is proving that that's not right. No kidding. All right, I'm off of it. But I just had to throw that out there because it's just so stupid. All right, a lot of people have been asking for more updates on the ponds and the fish. Well, we'll probably give you an update on that pretty soon because our fish that we have ordered to stock the ponds with, now we didn't order like a truckload of fish. We just ordered a few fish. But we did get some, they're coming in, I think, tomorrow, and we will be putting those in the ponds tomorrow. And, we'll probably film that and show you that. Just a side note, though, I went back to the new pond that I recently restored, if you want to call it that. I built the pond from scratch, but I let it sit for like 15 years without working on it. And anyway, I went back there and finished it just recently, as you've seen. But I was just back there yesterday, and I was just noticing literally, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds upon hundreds of little tiny minnows that are like this long, just little tiny minnows. There's just tons of them in there, just hundreds upon hundreds. And I assume they're those green sunfish. So the new bass and catfish that we're going to be throwing in there are going to have a feast. Steve Smith sent me an auction note, so I thought I'd read that here. Recently we've had that auction of those 8 instruments. Only 6 of them sold. We're going to be putting 2 more back up for auction before long, when I can find time. So Steve says, just a note to let you know that I received the Oscar Schmidt guitar yesterday. It arrived in perfect condition in a box with the heaviest cardboard I've ever seen. No problem. I had to pay $10 extra for that box. Thank you for your care you gave in packaging and sending the guitar. It is exactly as you described it in your videos, and the action is not as bad as I thought it would be, that he was expecting. Anyway, he just says thanks, and so Steve Smith, thank you for purchasing it. That was a nice little guitar. I mean, it's not a Martin HD28, which you're going to get to see here in a minute, but it's a nice guitar. I mean, for that kind of money, you'd be hard-pressed to find one any better. You really would. Okay, let's see. Moving on to the next thing. Metal detector stuff. Just, again, random. I have a lot of stuff, guys. I just thought I'd throw out a bunch of random topics here, and then we'll get right back into all the music stuff here real quick. I've had this Mind Lab metal detector for maybe 2 years now. It's a Equinox 800. Very good machine. One of the top metal detectors in today's metal detector stuff, you know what I mean? It's really one of the best. I'm not saying it is the best, but it is one of the top detectors. And the problem with using that here on the farm is you can't move it that far without hitting something. I mean, I'm not lying. Everywhere you go, at least around the buildings and the barns and things where people have been for 170 years, I guess now, because we've got deeds on this farm back to the 1850s. So, I'm not that great with math, but I think, I don't know. Anyway, that's roughly 170 years, I think. But anyway, we, any place you put the thing down, it just beeps. I mean, just beeps constantly. You can't even move it that far, and it just beeps. And so you have to be able to understand what those beeps mean and all that. Otherwise, you'd just be digging all day long and just digging trash after trash after trash. And a lot of them are pull tabs and bottle caps and junk like that. But I did find something pretty nice yesterday. But I want to back up the truck for just a second and say, when I first bought this farm in 1998, one of the first things I did was take out I had just an old White's metal detector, and it was from the 70s, I think. I used to use it to find my aluminum arrows that would go under the grass. Anyway, I just walked around the old farmhouse up there, and the very first thing I found, and I found it within the first 30 seconds of looking. I mean, like within the first minute for sure. I mean, I just put it on the ground and it hit something, and I thought, boy, that sounds like a coin, you know. So I dug down and came up with, I think it was a 1907 or a 1905, I can't remember now, real early 1900 Barber quarter. And man, I went like, golly, you know, the very first thing I found. And so I'm thinking, this farm's loaded, you know, is what I'm thinking. So I went out and bought a better metal detector because that one was from the 70s and it was a cheap one to begin with. And so I went out and bought a Fisher metal detector, which is a good metal detector, still is a good metal detector. And it was really good at identifying, you know, coins especially. And I found a lot of coins here. In fact, I counted them up last night, and I think there was like $16 worth of coins I found here. And some of them were from the 20s and 30s and stuff like that. You know, I mean, quite a few of them in that range, but nothing like that first one I found, you know. So yesterday I finally found one that is as good as that one, I guess you'd say. And so I just thought I'd show you that. You can't really see it. I know you're not going to be able to see this, and I'm sorry. It's just so tarnished. But I'll try to get it where you can see it. There you can see the head there. I think you can see it. I'm looking in the monitor. And I don't know if you'll see the date or not. I'm trying to hold it still for a second. Yeah, it's a 1900, and it's what they call a V-nickel. It's by Barber. It's a Barber V-nickel or a Barber, you know. He designed these coins that had this head on there. I don't even know whose head that is. I should have researched that. But anyway, this is a 1900 nickel. You know, and I also want to point out something. You notice, even though it's tarnished, you notice that the coin itself is in really pretty perfect shape. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the coin. It's just real tarnished. In fact, you can read everything on it, just real tarnished. Look at our wonderful money today. This, I'm not kidding you, this is a 2,000 penny. Look at that. Isn't that pitiful? I mean, I know that a penny's not worth anything anyway. I know you can make all kinds of arguments for why we should make it out of the cheapest metal in the world. But after all, it is our national money, you know? And there's a 2,000. So good luck to my grandkids and great-grandkids that are going to be, you know, using a metal detector in the future. See? That's a 2,000. Pitiful. Just pitiful. It's just ate up. And all the new money is like that. I don't know if you're not a metal detectorist, you wouldn't know that. All the old money is just fine. Perfect. All the new money is like that. It's crap. I also, just in the last day or so, found this. It's some kind of a charm off of a bracelet or something. I don't know. It used to have a stone in it, but the stone is long since disappeared. It's cheap. It's nothing fancy. But then I found this quite a while ago, I'll be honest, but I just wanted to show it to you because I just was going through some of the stuff I had been finding here, and I saw this again, and I thought this was kind of unique. It's a quarter with a bullet hole through it, you know. Now, when I was a kid, I used to do this all the time. I would flip pennies or whatever in the air, and then I'd take my gun and I would shoot them. And I was pretty good at that. I could actually hit 9 out of 10 of them most of the time. So I'm sure, I don't know, I would imagine that's what they did with this. They pitched it up in the air and then they shot it, or they just sat it on something and shot it. I don't know which, but anyway, it had a hole in it. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like I said, I found about $16 worth of coins. Nothing really spectacular except for those 2 old Barber coins from the very early 1900s. A lot of pennies from even the teens, like 19s, but I haven't even found an Indian head penny here, and I was expecting to find that. So what I did was I ordered a brand new coil for this metal detector, but a real small coil. That lets you get in between a lot of the trash and stuff and isolate the signal better. That big coil has too much surface area, and it's really hard to isolate a signal. I know you didn't sign in to hear about metal detecting, but I just thought I'd tell you. I've been doing metal detecting pretty much, well, really since I was a kid in a way. I had a really cheap one back then. Okay, let's see. Moving on. I was going to show you the mandolin here. This is the one that got returned for me to work on it again. This is really a fine mandolin in my opinion. I hate to brag on my own stuff, but this is in my opinion, it's a killer mandolin. It really is. I really got arthritis bad this morning. I don't know if I can play it very well, but I'll do the best I can. Really a good mandolin. If I had this mandolin, it'd probably be my daily player. It's a nice mandolin. It really is. It's got a good look. Everything about it's really nice. This is the 5th or 6th time it's been back. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm not trying to be mean or point somebody out. I can't find anything wrong with it. I mean, it's hard. You know me. If I'm honest, if there was something wrong with this mandolin that I built, I'd go, yeah, I screwed up. I got the neck on wrong, or I screwed up. I didn't do this right or that. And I just tell you, because stuff happens, And I'm not ashamed of making a mistake, but there's nothing wrong with this mandolin. I mean, I would sell it to you, and I guarantee you'd go, God, I love this mandolin. I guarantee you would. It's a killer mandolin. I just don't know what to do about it. It's keeping me up at night. I can't sleep. It's driving me crazy. He says, remove the nut and put on a 12-inch radius nut. Well, it's already got a 12-inch radius nut, and there's nothing wrong with the nut. Remove the fingerboard and replace it with a 12-inch radius fingerboard. It's got a 12-inch radius fingerboard on it. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't know what to do. It's killing me. It's just, I'm not lying to you. These kinds of things make me a nervous wreck. They just do. I can't put them out of my mind. It drives me bonkers crazy. I can't sleep at night because of it. I know I shouldn't be that way, but I care too much, I guess is the problem. And it's killing me. It's just killing me. And I'm not going to try to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth again. The arthritis is the primary reason I'm slowing my business down and quit building the instruments for other people. That's the primary reason. But I'd say it's only 60% in terms of building instruments for other people. That the arthritis is probably 60% of that reason. The other 40% is I just don't want to deal with people like that. I just don't want to do it. And that's the reason. I just don't want to deal with it. Because musicians are the pickiest people in the world. When I talk to him about this, I don't get any reason why he wants to do these things. He just wants to do them. I can't figure it out. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to rant on that, but it's killing me. It's just flat killing me. All right, so now we're going to get into, I'm going to tell you about the links that are in this video right now. If you go into the description, you'll find a link to the mandolin strap that I made. There's a link to the Homestead Horsemanship, which is my son's channel, but it's a new video, and the video is him riding his horse through McDonald's. So anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. Someone asked, and actually asked in the, which we're going to get into here in just a moment, where I get my wood. And I put a link to Old Standard Wood in Fulton, Missouri, in the description. So there's a link to where I buy my top boards and my maple. And he does have other stuff too, but that's mostly what he has. He has spruce and maple for the most part. And so that in a minute about how I cut my veneer and things like that. And that I have a link and a new link to the Accuslice channel on YouTube. And Accuslice is how I do all that veneering and stuff. Boy, the comments are scrolling up pretty quick. We got 123 viewers right at the moment. Let's see. The first question or comment that people wanted me to address today was voicing guitars or voicing instruments when you're making them. Now here, I'm probably going to disappoint you with this answer because you're probably thinking it's going to be some infinite wisdom, like Stradivari might have. I don't have that. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest with you. I don't like to make up stuff and blow smoke when I don't know something or when I don't feel I'm the expert. So the way I voice instruments, for the most part, is just by ear. When you get right down to it, what did Stradivari have? That's what he had. He didn't have all these strobe tuners, and he didn't even have this tuner. I do use that tuner when I'm voicing instruments, when I'm tap tuning on them. And when I do the tap tuning, and I do think I do pretty well with it, can I give you an exact explanation of how I do it? That would be hard to do, because what I do is, I want to make sure it's strong, so I don't want to take away too much wood. But on the other hand, I don't want that when I'm finished with it, I don't want it to land on a main note that's on that instrument. For instance, on a guitar, I don't really want the top to be an E, A, D, G, B, or E, I don't want it to be one of those notes. Now, if it's a B flat or something like that, when I'm tap tuning it, that's okay. Like on my mandolins, almost all my mandolins end up on a B flat. Now, B's not on a mandolin anyway, so B flat's a really good note for mandolins, I think. So when I tap tuning, I keep carving and, working and adjusting. And you might say, well, how do you adjust the note? Well, for the most part, when you take wood off, you're going to be lowering your note for the most part, especially when you take it off in those sweet spots that echo the most or that vibrate the most. For the most part, you're going to be lowering your note. A higher arch, if you're doing an archtop instrument, typically makes the note higher and things like that. So flattening out the top makes the sound lower, generally speaking. So I don't have any specific infinite wisdom that I can share on this. I would share it if I did. But the truth is, I do it all by ear, and I just listen to it, and I kind of hear what I did. I kind of listen and see what did that change? How did it change? And over time, you just develop an ear and a way of understanding that. I do not do anything with Siminoff. He got real detailed into it with a strobe tuner and semitones and all kinds of things. I don't do any of that. I just simply do it by ear, which I'm sure is all Stradivari could have done in his day. I mean, think about it 300 years ago. He built some of the finest instruments in the world. Obviously, you don't need all that high-tech stuff, and obviously, there's a lot of hype behind all this stuff. And the truth of it is, it takes you a while to get there. But what you need to do is find plans of good instruments and high-quality stuff, and you work from that. And like for instance, the one tip I guess I would give you is that you can go smaller than you probably think you can on most things. But there is a very distinct point of diminishing return. In other words, if you get your mandolin top too thin, well, guess what? 8 strings are going to push it down and break it, So you want to stay within reasonable bounds. Anything you do on instruments, if you take them to extremes, you're going to pay the price, You don't go to extremes. You try to stay somewhere in the middle and yet, push the edge, if you will, You're in the middle, but you're kind of pushing toward that edge. And that's kind of where you want to be on your instruments for the most part. That's about all I got on voicing. I'll be honest with you. Like voicing a guitar, for instance, the scalloping, the braces, that's not a bad thing. What I typically do, I like to leave my braces a little taller, but thinner. And the reason for that is the way the wood's cut. Let me demonstrate that real quick. I don't know how tight a resolution you're going to have on this camera here, but I think you can see that the grain goes vertically through this wood. That's what you want for your braces. So, in other words, if I was going to cut a guitar brace right now, I would say take a 1/4 inch off of this edge right here. Then the grain is going vertical through that brace. So I typically leave my braces on the tall side, but I thin them down. And I will scallop them out and all that, but I may leave them just a hair taller than, say, my competition, but I typically make them thin. So because that's where the strength is. You want strength, but you want lightweight so it can vibrate. So that's my school of thought on voicing instruments. Everybody's got a school of thought. Everybody's got their own theory. I guess you just heard mine. So that's the best I've got on voicing guitars. I hope that helps you a little bit. Someone asked about string gauges. They see me using different gauges and they wonder why. Well, it's kind of just boils down to common sense, and it boils down to how that instrument was made or voiced, if you want to call it voicing. If the braces are really small, thin, tiny, all that, then I'm going to go with much lighter strings. If I look, you got to understand, I've seen, I want to say hundreds, but I guess it's more like thousands of instruments over the years. I've just seen tons and tons of instruments, and I kind of have in my mind, I don't have a ruler out or a caliper out, but I can look at a guitar and go, oh, those braces are pretty small. Or I can look at a guitar and go, oh, that looks about normal. And if it's about normal, well, I'll probably use the normal strings, the medium strings. But if it's, thin or really thin, well, then I'm going to go to a much lighter string. And quite honestly, that's pretty much just based on experience again. I should know these things and I don't, but I've read them and I know that there's tons of foot-pounds pressure on each string. And I'm going to say it's in the neighborhood of 60 or 65 foot-pounds of pressure or something like that these strings exert. Well, just think about that. You got a 1/8 inch thick top or thinner, and most of them are thinner than 1/8 inch. And you're trying to hold that kind of weight, So that's why I use thinner strings or lighter gauge strings on lighter built instruments. There's nothing wrong with building a light instrument, but then you need to match your strings to it. And that's why I use different gauge strings, is that I'm just looking at the instrument and I go, and I'm just making a judgment call of, I think we better put light strings on this one. Or, maybe we need to put extra light. That's what I put on that old guitar. I put extra light strings on this. This is not that it couldn't handle it. The braces in here are big enough to handle it. But then you got to think about the size of the instrument also, the age of the instrument, the fact that this neck is still loose here a little bit. It's not loose enough to care about for a wall hanger. You know what I'm saying? It's going to hold. In fact, listen to it. It's in tune, I betcha. So that loose neck isn't really hurting anything. So, you make lots of judgment calls on this kind of stuff. And it's, at the risk of sounding like some kind of know-it-all, it's just based on experience. I kind of know what I can get away with, and I kind of know what I can't get away with. Ask me how I know that. Because you'll push the envelope and you go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And I see we're getting all kinds of spam scrolling up. You know, hate to digress off of this instrument right now, but there's lots of spam going on throughout YouTube everywhere. You get people on all these different channels, they're getting messages to the viewers saying, you just won XYZ or whatever. Trust me, it's fake. You know, and if I'm going to get a hold of you, I'm going to get a hold of you outside of the comments. I'm going to get a hold of you through, you know, a regular email message or something like that, or a phone call. So you'll know it's me. So don't fall for any of that. I'm writing this down in a trench, Mom. Don't scold if it isn't so neat. The way that you did when I was a kid, and I'd come home with mud on my feet. The captain just gave us our orders, and Mom, we will carry them through. And I'll finish this letter the first chance I get, but for now I'll just say I love you. Great old song, great old guitar. It's, you know, this is a little cheapy guitar. I mean, people are saying, oh, it's a great guitar, way too good to hang on the wall. Well, you know, it's all about what you think, you know, in music and stuff. And the fellow that owns this, he really just wants it as a family heirloom. That's it. That's all he cares about. He just wants it restored. He's got really good guitars to play. He's not going to play this for the most part. But I'm sure he'll take it off the wall every once in a while and maybe play a tune on it. You know what I'm saying? And right now, the neck is fine the way it is. If he decides he really likes the sound and likes playing it, he'll probably have me fix the neck and make sure it stays good for years and years to come. But right now, it's holding just fine, and it's really a pretty decent little instrument, and it's a good family heirloom for sure. I'm going to hang it back up. Okay, all right, string gauges we talked about. Where I get my wood, that was another comment that came up, and I did put a link in the description to Old Standard Wood up in Fulton, Missouri. The story on me using this fellow, his name is John Griffin, and he was a conservation agent. Someone told me about him, and I got a hold of him, and I went up to his place. This was back when he was still a conservation agent, and he was just doing the wood on the side. Well, when I got there, I saw the quality of the stuff he had, and I went, wow, this is great stuff, you know? And so I've been buying from him ever since. So really, almost since day one, I was probably into it 3 or 4 years before I started buying from him. But I've been buying from him a long time, and he allows me still to go there and pick out my wood. I think he allows almost anybody to do that for the most part, but for the most part, he ships to big companies now. He ships to Martin Gibson and, you know, just Taylor, everybody. And he ships it pretty much all over the world. But he still lets me go there and hand pick out my wood, and I always do that whenever I need wood. So, because it's, I don't know, it's a couple hours drive up there, but, you know, what the heck, it's worth it to me to pick out the super quality wood that I like to use. Let's see. So anyway, that link is in the description. Another thing that someone asked about is, how do you stay motivated to do all this? Well, you know, you might say, well, how could you be qualified to talk about this? Well, I'm not. In a lot of ways, I'm not. I'll just tell you that. But on the other hand, believe it or not, I took a lot of psychology classes in school. When I was going to night school, I took them as electives, but I probably took, I don't know, at least a half dozen psychology classes. Doesn't make me a psychiatrist, doesn't make me a psychologist. But still, I know a little bit about being motivated and all that type of thing. But right now, I think a lot of it is just that it has to be important to you. And this is important to me. Customer service is important to me, and customer service has been important to me since day one, which is why this drives me crazy. I want to support my customer. I want to do the right thing for my customer. But on the other hand, I don't like busy work, and I don't want to just do something just to do it when there's no benefit whatsoever that I can see to do it. So, my point about the motivation is it needs to be important to you. I think you have to make it a priority. And, it is a priority to me, and it always has been, and it probably always will be. When I was working for Southwestern Bell, in a job as a service rep, that's all about customer service. And we went through a 6-week intensive training. And I'm not kidding you when I say intensive. It was in your face intensive training for 6 weeks. I don't think I've ever been through anything even sort of similar. I mean, I think if you went to boot camp, it was like having the drill sergeant in your face. That's the way this was. I'm not kidding. For 6 weeks, it made me a nervous wreck. It really did. And anyway, that kind of also drilled into the customer service aspect. And I think that's if you're going to get into this line of work, I think customer service is job number one. Job number one. Job number two is learning how to do this stuff. But staying motivated, that comes from inside, and I think the only way you can stay motivated on this kind of thing, people say you can motivate someone. I don't think so. They kind of have to motivate themselves. I mean, you can sort of urge them into something by saying, well, we're going to dock your pay if you don't do something. That you can call that motivation. That's not exactly motivation. Motivation has to come from within, in my opinion, and the way that happens is you have to say this is important, and you have to believe it's important, and then you will be motivated to take care of it. That's about the best I got for that. I mean, because I don't think there's any magic button. There's no magic pill. Someone in the comments said their hand is dragging on their glossy neck, and what can they do about it? Well, the quickest, simplest thing to do about it is baby powder. Baby powder works miracles on those kinds of things. So just plain baby powder, put it on your hands and on your neck, and it'll make it slide really good. For me personally, that's why I don't put finishes on the necks I build for instruments for myself. I like the bare wood feel because it's slick, just slick as it can be. And your hand won't hang up on that gloss. So, I mean, you could strip your neck down, but you're getting into a big job there. And, you probably ought to know what you're doing or at least be committed before you start that project, because that's not easy to do on some instruments, especially the ones that have the epoxy type finishes. Oh my gosh, some of those are just crazy hard to take off. So you might want to know what kind of finish you have on there before you think about it. If it's a nitrocellulose lacquer, those scrape off fairly easy, not too bad. Or if it's an oil varnish, they scrape off fairly easy. But if it's an epoxy type finish, you might want to think twice about it if you decide to do that. But the quick and simple way is probably baby powder. And somebody can put in comments if you have another option for an easy way to make it slick. The final comment or question that somebody had asked prior to today is cutting veneer. Again, how do I cut veneer? What's the name of how do I cut veneer, and what's the name of the machine I use or that fence I use? And it's the Accuslice machine, and it was invented and developed by John Veneer. He's got his own channel on YouTube. There is a link in the description of this video to his channel, and I would recommend that if you do go there, please tell him that I sent you, because that's just a helpful thing. He gave me the machine, and that's kind of like payback when you tell him that, and so I appreciate it if you would tell him that. But honestly, it's a great machine. You know, I've said this several times before. I always thought that I could just take a regular fence, run the board through the saw, and slice off the veneer and be just perfect. Well, it works. But I'm going to tell you, black and white for sure, and this is not exaggerating, you cannot do it as well as you can do it with his Accuslice machine. You can't do it by hand as good. For instance, and here's the example. If I slice a 3/4 inch wide board, maybe it's 6 inches tall or whatever, and I slice that by hand to get the veneer off, I'll get 4 pieces if I'm lucky out of a 3/4 inch board. And you got to be pretty good to get 4 pieces. If I use his machine, I'll for sure get 5 pieces, and I might get 6. You know, it depends on the board, and maybe it's a little bigger than 3/4 inch or that type of thing. But, you know, it's a really good machine. It's that much more accurate. And, you know, when you're spending big bucks on these high dollar woods, it can pay for itself pretty darn quick if you do a lot of it. Now, if you're only making one instrument and that's all you plan to make, you don't need Accuslice. You can handle it without that. But if you're a potential builder and wanting to get into this kind of serious, I'll tell you what, I'd buy the Accuslice now. I wouldn't, I'll be honest, I wouldn't have bought it prior to using it. I wouldn't have. I'm just being honest with you. But after using it, now that I know what it does, I'd buy it. Just that simple. Just that simple. Call it a commercial if you want. He's not paying me. He gave me the machine. It's all over with as far as our deal. So I don't have to say that. I'm just telling you the truth. That's it. I think that's everything I was going to present today. Anyway, let's move up to the top here and see if we have any questions at the top, and I'll start scrolling down. If you do have questions, put question marks in front of your question, please, so I can find it easier. There's Andrew Reynolds. He says, peace and love from Bonnie, Scotland. I see Andrew's comments all the time. Thank you so much, Andrew, and thanks for sticking with me. Appreciate it. Here we go. I think I found a question. Rooster Run Workshop. Where did you get the lighted Dremel bass? I wish I had written his name down. That's terrible. I'm the worst with names. It was a fellow. He's in a different country even. I truly can't think of his name, honestly. I should have written it on here. Lately, I have been writing the name on anything that somebody gives me, and I should have written it on here, and I didn't. But this is a custom handmade bass by a fellow. I can't even think of which country he's from right now. But it's beautiful. It's just wonderful. And you plug your plug in here, and then there is a little LED light underneath here. So you can't buy one of these, unfortunately. But I tell you what, I was the fortunate recipient of this little puppy. I love this thing. This thing is awesome, and then some. And if you're the fellow that made it for me, I apologize because I can't remember names, but I can't remember anybody's name. I look at my band members who I've been playing with for 20 years, and I'll look at them on stage and I can't say their name. It's terrible. It's a disease. It really is. And so don't feel bad. It's nothing personal. But if you are that fellow and you're watching today, put a note in the comments there. And remind me of your name, because I'm so bad. I hate myself for that. I really do. I'm so embarrassed over that fact. But I know lots of people struggle with remembering names, but I've had that my whole life. That's not an old age thing. It's been that way my whole life. Same way with song titles. I cannot remember a song title to save my neck. They'll say, well, what is this? And I go, it's in G. That's the best I got. Rooster, okay, that was the lighted bass. That was his question. The next one is from Richie Stanfill. Hi, Jerry. I have been watching your videos for about a month. I have learned so much. You are a very talented man. Well, thank you. You didn't have to say that, but thank you. I've got about that much talent. The rest of it is just determination. And I think that's probably more of it, to be truthful. It really is. It's more like determination. Andrew Reynolds, hi, from Scotland. He goes, "Hi, Jerry. Did you get your home studio finished and all up and running?" Yeah, get it sorted out. It's physically there, but mentally it's not there, and that's the truth. I know this probably sounds stupid, but honestly, I really felt like an expert on that machine when I had it set up and I was using it all the time. After not using it for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years, I just have the worst time. I mean, I can record with it sort of, but just sort of recording isn't good enough if you're really wanting to do a quality product. And I haven't taken the time to sit back down and relearn it, to be honest with you. So that's where I'm at, honestly. And I just need to take the time and learn it again, but I just haven't. I'm sure it would start coming back. In fact, it has sort of started coming back, but only sort of. Michael Boyer was astonished by your cord every 3 days. I have experienced a cord in a month. Can you convert the wood furnace to a coal, and would it be less expensive? Well, I'm sure it could be converted, but in the middle of Missouri here, I'm sure coal would be expensive. I don't even know where you could get coal, to be honest with you. It'd have to be trucked in, I'm sure. I don't see any point in it. I mean, I get the wood free, because it's cut right here on the farm, and there's plenty of it. I'm not depleting my forest, if anybody thinks that. I know you're not specifically saying that or anything. I'm just saying if anybody else is thinking that I'm depleting my forest, there's not a chance. These trees grow so fast around here, it's unbelievable. In fact, after having it logged 4 or 5 years ago, you can look down this valley and you can't tell it was ever logged at all. And you can even go through the woods and you can't really tell it was logged, other than you do see a lot of treetops laying around. And that's what I'm cutting up, is I'm cutting up the treetops. But no, I've thought about the coal thing. I've thought about all kinds of options. Lots and lots and lots of people say, insulate the floor, put like foam insulation on the floor, put a new floor on top of that. Well, it's 7,000 square feet, and I can't afford to do that. And to be honest with you, there's a lot more hassle to that than you think. I mean, all your doors are wrong then. There's just all kinds of issues. Other people have said, well, what about a thermal floor? You put that electric tape through there. Well, I did that. I did that in our master bathroom. Now, our master bathroom is really big, and it's got like 2 sections, a his and a hers section, if you will. And I put the thermal electric floor through that whole thing. And honestly, we can't afford to use it. It's that expensive. It doubles our electric bill if we turn that on. I mean, it feels great. It's awesome. But it doubles our electric bill, which we have a pretty good electric bill already. It's nothing horrible. I mean, it's not outstanding electric bill, but it becomes outstanding when you turn that floor on. So we really hardly use it. So if we tried to put that through the whole thing, oh my gosh, you'd have to be a millionaire. And I am definitely not one of those guys. All right, so anyway, enough on that. Moving right along, let's see if I can find another question. Jeremy Horvath, can you buy the mandolin back from the person? Jeremy, I have offered, and I'm not making this up, I've offered at least 6 or 7 times, and probably more than that I've said to him specifically, I will send you every penny you paid for it back. And then he'll say something off the wall like, well, what about all the shipping costs back and forth? Well, in my opinion, you shouldn't have shipped it back and forth, number one, but I'm not going to pay you that. in addition to what he paid for the mandolin. I'll give him his money back, and I've offered to give it back. No, I don't really. And the other comeback he always has, no, I don't want to sell it. I love that mandolin. I mean, he'll say that. He'll say, I love that mandolin. It's an awesome mandolin. Then why do you keep sending it back here? You know, he's an old fella, and his wife has passed on, and I just don't know what's motivating him to do this. I really don't. I just don't get it. So I can't buy it back, and I'm not going to make that offer anymore. I'm just done with making that offer. I've made it many, 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 many times. Yeah. So anyway, I just don't know. But honestly, that's one of the main reasons why I'm not building instruments for any. If I'm being 100% truthful, that's one of the main reasons I'm not building instruments for anybody else. I'm just done with it. Are you still watching Itchy Boots? Yes, I am. I watch every single one she puts out. She's up in Canada. And did you see the episode where she found all those starfish? Now, I'm 100, according to my doctor, I am profoundly colorblind. But even I could tell there had to be a lot of color in those different starfish. It just looked like they had all kinds of colors going on there. I wish I could actually see it for what it's worth, but I thought that was pretty cool. I never knew starfish came in colors like that, or at least that's what it appeared to me to be. I assume that's what it was. You guys that can see colors would know better. So Itchy Boots is still one of my favorites. I watch a lot of them, though. I watch a lot of different channels, but she's still one of my very favorites. Rat is asking 2 questions. Would you consider making a stand out of wood to hold your guitar waist high? My back can't handle heavy guitars and don't trust the common metal ones, I guess he's saying. Rat, that boils down to you got to do what you got to do. I never have thought of doing anything like that, but I could see how you could make a decent stand, and you'd want to make it adjustable, I think. I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe somebody out there in the comment land can comment on that one too, but I could certainly see making a wooden stand to hold your guitar if you're, wanting to stand up and play. On the other hand, it might be better to just do like us old guys and sit down and play, sit on a tall stool or whatever. And you can even do that on stage and you look just fine doing that too. So I don't see a problem with that. Oh, by the way, I didn't have it on my outline here, but you recall, I'm digressing from the comments for a minute. I'm just putting them on hold. We're going to go back to them. But you recall in my vlogs that I've been restoring an HD28 for Leon, who is our banjo player in our band. The story on it is it's like a 79-ish guitar from Martin, a HD28. And it's one of those where the bridges were put in the wrong place on those instruments from the factory. And when Leon first gave it to me about 15 years ago, I called him back and I said, he wanted me to work on it and see if I could improve it. And I said, Leon, your bridge is in the wrong place. And he it instantly comes back with, it's a Martin guitar. The bridge is not in the wrong place. I said, I'm telling you, your bridge is in the wrong place. Now, this was before I had heard about this mass problem, okay? I didn't know that there was a mass problem back in that time frame. I knew this one had the bridge in the wrong place. I mean, it was so black and white obvious to me. It wasn't even sort of a guess, It was like absolutely for sure, 100% the bridge is in the wrong place. And so I told him that. And I said, the only way I can fix this, Leon, is if I move your bridge. Well, he relented and he goes, okay, if you're sure, go ahead and move it. Well, neither one of us is what you would call sure at that moment, but I was 100% convinced it was in the wrong place, but was I sure? That's a little different story. Okay, So anyway, make a long story short, I moved his bridge and gave it back to him, and he absolutely loved it. It noted perfectly. He could put the capo on without retuning it, et cetera, and so forth. It wasn't a week after I fixed that we got some sort of a memorandum from Stuart McDonald, if on their mailing list type thing that says, I guess many of you by now have noticed that, the Martins have some of the Martins in the 79-ish, 80-ish type time frame, in that early time frame there, have their bridges in the wrong place. Well, I sent Leon that note, and of course that made him feel a lot better that we did the right thing, Well, now you fast forward 15 years, now the bridge is actually cracked across the holes, and you might say, well, it's something I did. Well, it wasn't. When I looked inside it, I looked at the bridge plate, and the bridge plate was for my opinion, on a Martin guitar, the bridge plate was just crap. I mean, that's the nicest way I can put it. It was just a piece of crap. It was a real thin piece of maple, and it was all chipped to pieces, which I don't know what caused that. But anyway, and it was cracked down the middle. And because that was cracked and broken, the bridge finally broke too. Well, in addition to that, the neck was loose, or it was at the wrong angle on his guitar. The neck had just kind of crept up, and it was really bad. Now, you know me, I'll do almost anything to avoid resetting the neck on an instrument. If I can do anything, I'll do it, Well, I couldn't do anything on this one. So in the recent month or so here, I have reset the neck on that guitar. I put a new bridge plate in that guitar, and I put a new bridge on it. And here's Leon playing it for he had only picked it up from me about an hour before you see this right here.
What are we going to play, Leon? Because I have no clue.
We're going to play Faded Love.
Faded Love?
I'm going to take half, and Don will take half.
Okay,
and we'll take another half.
What flavor are we going to play this in?
In C.
C, huh? C?
Well,
you wouldn't want to put a capo on my head.
If I had a capo,
Oh, you don't have a capo. All right, we're going to play this in C. It's easy for those guys to say.
Well, wait a minute. He's going to rent me one, so.
No, that's all right. Don't worry about it. I'll fake something if you let me have a turn on it. Okay. And if you don't, that's okay too. You guys can just take it and knock it out.
No, you can suffer with it.
All right, we'll put the capos down there.
Well, that was just an excerpt from our Lyric Live show that we did about, well, a week ago, I guess, last Saturday night. And turned out really well. I was really happy that Leon just loved his guitar after he got it back, you know, because that was quite a job. It really was. You know, this old guitar that I have hanging up here right now, that was a piece of cake compared to taking that bridge plate out of that HD28, taking the bridge off of it, taking the neck out of it, and then putting it all back. Oh my gosh, that was 10 times harder job than fixing up that old guitar. And if you don't understand that, well, you just have to do this kind of work and you would understand it. Trust me, 10 times harder. So you will see a full video series on that, restoring that HD28, if you will. And I'm using the word restore because I don't know any other word to use, because it was kind of restoring it back to playability, really. If not the finish, at least I was restoring the playability. Okay, back off that, now back to the... and by the way, the other guitar player was Don Davis. Don is an incredible guitar player also. He plays thumb style, and he plays bass in our band. I always joke and say he's such a good guitar player, we make him play bass. He really is a great guitar player. So, and of course, Leon can play everything. And Leon, by the way, I don't ever let him touch a mandolin on stage. I would look like such an infant after he gets done playing a mandolin. Oh my gosh, he just tears it up. Okay, let's see. Moving on, let me find some more questions here. Darren Campbell, getting a lot of buffering for some reason. Well, sorry, I can't do a thing about it, unfortunately. Wilczek, Jerry, can bamboo be used for guitar bracing? I know, you're gonna shrug. Sorry to ask. I would say I would tend to go against that. I could be proven wrong. I mean, you'd have to prove it because I'll never do it. But on one hand, I can see where it might work and it might be okay. On the other hand, not so much. I don't know how well bamboo vibrates. I know that I've seen wind chimes and things made out of it, so I know it does have some resonance to it. But I guess you'd have to have an awfully big piece of bamboo in order to make a tall, thin brace, because it's curved all the way around. The bamboo is, so. But I would say you could probably do it and probably be okay. I mean, that's my gut feeling, because it is hard material and it is more or less quarter sawn by the way you would use it. You'd probably get away with it, but I'll never try it, obviously. You're just getting a guess out of me, and that's all I can give you. It would probably be okay. Lots more spam there. Let's see. Raz1500 says, tell us about the opening scene in your videos. Was it filmed in your shop? Did you film it? Do you own the old tools that are shown in the bench, etc.? That scene was made by a fellow, I want to say in the Dominican Republic. It's down in the Caribbean. I know that for sure. And his last name is the same as the last name of one of our Molina. He's the catcher on the Cardinals, Molina. And so I know that fellow's name that made that scene, his last name is Molina. And he's down in the Dominican. And I paid him, a chunk of change for doing that. And no, I don't own all of those old tools. That is filmed in it was taken from shots I sent him in my shop. I don't know if I sent him photographs or if I sent him an actual film of me doing that. I can't remember, honestly. It was quite a while back. And anyway, he put it all together and sent it to me, and I asked for a slight revision, and he did the slight revision, and then he sent it back to me, and that's all I know about it, to be truthful. But anyway, he obviously does real good work. Let's see here. It just scrolled up on me really far, so let me get back to where I was. Sorry. Okay, I think I found it, and let's see here. I'm looking. If I'm missing anybody, I'm sorry. I'm just looking for those question marks in the front there. Allen Aviation. I have an archtop bridge like that one. When the other strings are the right height, the low E is too low. Can you shim just one string, and how? Well, yeah, you can do it. I mean, if you're talking about putting the shim here, this is where I would probably recommend. If you need it higher back here, then yeah, you could shim it back here. And you could shim just one side, but then you'd still want to make, you'd want to work it down so that shim and the other side match the top real well. You could just shim one side. I've done it. So I know you can do it, but you would also still want to make sure that that the bridge fits the top really well by using the sandpaper method that I've shown in a lot of videos. If you're talking about up here, I typically don't shim up here, but you could also put a shim under your nut. That's one option. You could put some sort of a little, like some people use a piece of paper or something as a shim under the string itself. Or the more common way these days is to put a little baking soda in there and a little bit of super glue and build it up that way. Now, to be quite honest, that's what I did on this one. This is a wall hanger, so that's what I did to fix this one. Because this one had that problem. The E was too low up here. It was fine back here, but it was low up here. So I did use the CA glue and the baking soda trick on this one. It's a wall hanger. If I was doing this on an HD28 Martin, I'd make a whole new nut. That's the difference. But, if you're doing it for yourself, the super glue and the baking soda trick is probably the way to go, because you got nobody to please but yourself, So anyway, but yeah, you can shim it just down here on one side if that's what you want to do. But again, you want to rub it back and forth on that sandpaper to make it match that top. Let's see. I'm still scrolling down. Have you ever recarved a custom instrument just in certain areas to help the sound? Yes, I have. Back in my younger days, I had this service where people would send me their mandolins. I'd take the tops off their mandolins, and I would make a whole new top for it and send it back to them. And most of those people really loved it. I think I had one customer that complained, and he didn't complain about the sound or what I did on the top. He complained the way I took his top off by cutting the fretboard extension off to get the top off easier. Anyway, that's a common practice. It's nothing that I created or invented, but he didn't like it, and so he complained. But other than that worked out real well. I've also recarved tops. I can't remember specifically. I just know I've done it on a number of occasions. Can't really think of a specific instance because it all runs together, man. It's like water under a bridge. But I definitely have done it. I've recarved braces. I've recarved tops. I've even recarved a top on one mandolin I built. There was a mandolin I had built way back in the 90s somewhere, and I liked the sound of it, but I just knew it could sound better. And it turned out that Joe Dean wanted a mandolin at the time, and I said, well, I've got this one hanging around here. I said, let me take it apart and recarve it. So I took it apart, recarved it. I put the braces back in it with liquid hide glue, and the liquid hide glue let go, and the braces came out of it. This was after I had it all back together, and the top seemed to be holding just fine. And to this day, he still plays it, and he loves it. He loves the sound of it without the braces in it. He just loves it. And in fact, that mandolin was used on that recording with those famous musicians. I'm trying to think of, he loaned it to a fiddle player who also played mandolin. Can't think of any of their names. All I know is you can buy the CD at the Cracker Barrel restaurants. It's on the CD rack, and that mandolin was played on those rack. It was, what are those guys' names? Isaac is one of them. That crippled the fellow that's in the wheelchair that sings really good in country music. I can't think of their names. You know me and names. Isaac's is the only one I can think of. He's on there. It's pitiful. It's a terrible disease. But anyway, that mandolin was there. But I did recarve that one, but that was my own mandolin, you know. So I've done it a bunch of times. Am I a veteran? No, I am not. When I was in high school, the Vietnam War was going like crazy. And I thought, young, dumb kid, I thought, well, I'll go and I'll do my part, and I'll do it as best I can. That was my mindset. Well, just before it would have been my time to go, I had an eye opener. Really, something that just shocked me down deep. And I know some of you probably saw this same picture. It was a fairly famous picture. I think it was in the Look magazine. It might have been Life magazine. I don't remember. Look may have been local. I'm not sure. So it may have been Life magazine. But it was a picture of some Viet Cong guy, or the enemy, let's just say it that way. I don't know if I know all the right terms. And he was holding up 2 American soldiers' heads in his hands. And that was the picture. And here I am, a high school kid, getting ready. I had a low draft number. I knew I was going. And that just changed everything for me. I thought, oh, man, I don't want to go. Golly, that just looks horrible. But I wasn't dodging. I still was going to go, but that picture, it changed my perspective. And I was worried about going. And would you not know, they called the draft off just before I graduated. I was one happy little guy. So I didn't go. So I'm not a veteran. I do have a lot of friends that were veterans. I don't know if I should digress and tell you this story. We're already running long here, but I think I will digress and tell you this story because I think some of you will. I don't know. It's sad in one way. In another way, it's a little bit humorous. You got to look hard to find the humor in it because it's pretty sad. I had a guy working for me at Southwestern Bell, and remember, we were into the customer service. By this time, I was a supervisor over service reps, and customer service was a big thing. Well, this guy was as rough as a cob. He was rough and tough and gruff, man. And, I knew he was a Vietnam veteran. And I'm seriously telling you, if you were going to be in a bar fight, this is the guy you want on your side. Trust me. I saw his hands one day, and they were just lined with scars. Just knife marks all the way across. You could tell it was knife marks, and it was just cut all over. Just probably looked like 6, 7 cuts all the way across his hands, on both hands. Golly, I thought, did that happen in Nam? It's what I asked him. I said, my gosh, what happened to your hands? Did that happen in Nam? He goes, no. No, he says, that happened at home. I said, at home? He goes, yeah, I changed the channel on the TV and my brother didn't like it. And he came at me with a what do you call that knife that's on the front of your rifle? Bayonet. He came at me with a bayonet and I grabbed the blade. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it just cut his hands all to pieces. Well, then he progressed to tell me more stories. And this guy had been shot more than you could ever imagine. He showed me bullet holes everywhere. I mean, he had bullet holes through his leg. One bullet hit him 3 times, went through his stomach, went through his arm and neck or something. I mean, I don't know. It made 3 scars on him, 1 bullet. It was crazy. Then he couldn't stop talking about it. Most guys don't like to talk about it. This guy, he couldn't stop talking about it. This next part's the part that's the sad part. He showed me a scar right dead center in his stomach, right here. I mean, the bullet went straight in. And I thought, my gosh, how come that didn't kill you? He goes, I'm not making this up. This is exactly how he explained it. He says, oh, I can tell you ain't never been shot. I said, yeah, you're right. I ain't never been shot. He goes, oh, it makes you pretty, I'll say dang mad. He didn't say dang. Makes you pretty dang mad. I said, well, yeah, you can get mad all you want, but you got a bullet straight through you. That had to kind of knock you down a little bit, you know, and the other guy's got a gun. Why didn't he finish you off? He goes, well, it made me pretty mad. He says, all I can tell you is he's deceased. And I said, you killed him? He goes, yep. And I couldn't let it go at that point. I'm going like, how in the heck could you have killed him after he just shot you straight in the center of the stomach? And he says, all I can tell you is 17 bullets in the head. He was deceased. Whew. And trust me, I don't think he was exaggerating. I do. In fact, I'm not making this up. I swear to you, I promise my hand on a Bible. The next day, he brought in a picture. He took a picture of the guy. And trust me, he probably had 17 bullets in his head. Yeah, that war was a bad war. Well, all wars are bad wars, but man, that was a bad war. And it was bad on a lot of different levels. Bad because of the kind of war it was, bad because of the politics, bad because of a million reasons. So glad we aren't in that war anymore. Guys, it's late, and I know there's more questions here, and I do see 2 people that have made super chats, Toby Cadenhead, and you're not going to believe this, but the guy's name was Caden Bach. Cadenhead. So the last name on the fellow was Caden Bach, that I was just telling you that story about. But anyway, Toby Cadenhead gave me a super chat, and Doc Bluegrass gave me a super chat, and he says, hi from Tennessee, Jerry. Hope you and Sue are doing well. Thank you. That's Tim Carter. Well, I know Tim Carter. He's been here several times, stayed at our place. Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that. Look, there's a lot more questions, and I don't have time, and we've already run way over, so I'm really sorry. I will look at these questions. Well, actually, I may lose them. But I'll try to look at them and write them down real quick, and we'll address them in the next Shop Talk, or I'll address them in Monday's daily vlog. Thank you so much for being so kind to me and for tuning in today. We got 193 viewers right now. Hope you enjoyed today's Shop Talk. Hope you enjoyed seeing that little bit on that HD28 after all that restoration. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.